Good afternoon. I'm Phil Baker, Vice President of Boyd Insurance and Investment Services and Vice Chairman of the Public Policy and Small Business Division of your Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to remind everyone to please silence your mobile devices. And before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to stand and remain standing as we, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated. We have several elected officials with us in the audience today, and if you would just either stand or hold your hand up, whatever you prefer, we'd like to recognize you today. From the City of Bradenton, we have Mayor Wayne Poston. From Manatee County Commission, we have Commissioner Betsy Banak. We have Commissioner Steve Johnson. Thank you for your service. We appreciate our sponsors for today's event, for Interstate Bank, the Mosaic Company, and Sons Insurance Company. Month in and month out, they are dedicated and loyal to being our sponsors for these headliner events, and we really appreciate that. And we'd also like to recognize Interstate Bank as our newest platinum sponsor for the Chamber of Commerce. Our speaker today is L.K. Nandam, P.E. He goes by L.K., and he is the District Secretary for District 1 of the Florida Department of Transportation. He has over 22 years' experience in the transportation industry in both the public and private sector. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from Andhra University in India and a Master of Science in Transportation Engineering from Wayne State University. Prior to becoming the District Secretary, he has served as the Director of Operations and District Traffic Operations Engineer at the Florida Department of Transportation. He has previously served as the Traffic Operations Engineer with the City of Boca Raton and as a Senior Transportation Engineer with a private sector engineering firm. He is a registered professional engineer in the state of Florida and is an active member of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So welcome, Secretary Nandam.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? All right. First of all, I want to thank Manatee Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to come and speak with this group here, and particularly to Michael Gallen and for coordinating with me. I gave him a scare Friday evening. I was driving home and I was feeling down. My wife has been sick for the past 2 days and the last week, and I was like, I think I'm coming down with something. So I called Michael and I said, Michael, I may not make it on Monday. And he goes, I can hear him say in his mind, oh man, you know. and I said, Michael, you know, I'm going to call you Sunday, you know, if I cannot make it, and then we'll figure it out. But luckily, you know, I got over what I had, and I'm here, you know, so we'll get on with the program then. Okay. So I'm the district secretary with District 1, like Phil said, and I go by LK. And the reason I go by LK is my first name is pretty long, and thanks to my dad. Now, it so happened that my first name is actually Lakshmi Kant. You know, it's two names put together. Lakshmi is one name and Kant is the second name, and it's put together for a reason. So the background story is my dad, you know, I have one brother, and my mom was pregnant with me, and my dad's grandmom was on her deathbed. He was very close to her, and so he was hoping that at that time, you can't tell gender, right? So he was hoping that he was going to have a daughter, and he said his grandmom's name was Lakshmi. You know, it's kind of like in the Hindu mythology, Lakshmi is a goddess of money, okay? So a lot of Indian women have Lakshmi tagged to their names. So what happened is when I came out, he said, "Oh crap, what do I do now?" Right? But luckily, there's a way you can convert a female name to a male name by adding two names together. So that's how I ended up with Lakshmi Kant. So throughout my childhood, I was thanking him so much because I would be called Lakshmi or some form of Lakshmi. And then slowly, my friends started calling me LK. That's how I ended up as LK. When I took this position, people started calling me Secretary Nandam, and I'm like, I'm not about titles. I really am not about titles. Please call me LK because that's how I'm known to people. That's how I relate to people. That's how I connect with people. So that's how I go with LK, okay? So today, I'm going to give a little bit of introduction beyond what Phil gave about me, particularly about my beliefs and how I operate. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the department, our current work program, which is the fiscal year 18-19 work program, which started in July 1st of this year, goes till June 30th of next year, and the key projects that are covered in that work program. I'm going to touch on the strategic intermodal system cost feasible plan, because the importance of strategic intermodal system to state of Florida and the economic prosperity of the state, and then close out with the future and the challenges ahead with the technology that's coming to us with the connected and autonomous vehicles. Now, I'm not going to talk about the industry and what the industry is going through as it relates to that technology, but the challenges that we have in front of us for us professionals in transportation. So Phil talked about my background. I graduated from Wayne State University with a master's in transportation engineering, worked in consultant sector, and then I was a traffic operations engineer with Boca Raton, and then I came to District 1. So when I came to District 1, throughout my life, I grew up in the urban area. And so when I came to District 1, one of the things that happened is you start picking up the lingo, right? You start picking up the you all and folks and all that stuff. And so my daughter, who's a teen now, tells me that I sound weird because I got a Indian accent with a southern accent with a southern terminology. So she's like, "Stop talking in English, Dad. Really, you sound really weird." But anyway, I have a strong operations and safety background. And I actually in systems background, because when I was working with the city of Boca Raton, I worked on implementing their advanced traffic management system. So I worked with systems and getting signal systems in place and how to efficiently move traffic. That's my background. So whenever technology comes up, I get excited because, I get the excitement and I want to get involved and I want to make a difference in the system side. So that's basically my background. I believe in strong relationships, and I've always believed in strong relationships, particularly when you're working with your local partners. Relationships really matter because when you collaborate with your local partners, you can make great things happen. And I tell my folks the importance of maintaining those strong relationships. I'm all about proactive communication. Anytime we got a good or a bad thing happening that's associated with the department, I'm on the phone talking to our counterparts, talking to our commissioners, talking to our local partners to share that information, because when you are into proactive communication, then those strong relationships get better and your collaboration gets better. And I'm always about doing the right thing. When I say doing the right thing, you go through all kinds of analysis, all kinds of information, trying to make decisions. But at the end of the day, no matter what the standards that you have, the engineering standards that you have to abide by, the policies and procedures that you have to abide by, you got to think about what's the right thing to do at that moment with the information that you got with your partners involved. What is the right thing to do for the community and what is the right thing to do for that particular situation? If you actually focus on doing the right thing, then at the bottom of your heart, you can actually justify every decision that you make. And that's what I tell my folks. Guys, we as engineers tend to depend on standards, policies, and procedures, but try to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, if you feel that decision that you're making is the right thing to do, then we can always stand behind our decisions. That's basically my philosophy. When I came into this role 2 years ago, I set 3 priorities. One is employee success, because I strongly believe that as an organization, if we don't have our employees who contribute day in and day out towards the organization goals, then what good is the organization success? So we focus a lot on how to develop and help our employees succeed. The second priority is safety. If you think about it, several individuals, our customers using our transportation system are losing lives, either through a fatal injury or through a severe injury crash. And what are we doing about it? As engineers, we tend to focus on statistics because we use the statistics to define what patterns are out there and try to implement those engineering solutions. But we tend to lose that personal touch to that particular fatality and that particular person who lost their life, and the impact to the family, the immediate family, the impact to the friends, and the impact to the community. What I tell my folks is, when you look at every crash, think about that aspect, because that's when your emotion kicks in. That's when you look at what to do the right thing in that particular situation, so that you can make those decisions to reduce those fatal and severe injury crashes. With that thought process in mind, I've challenged my folks in the department, in the district, to work on a safety action plan. We have a safety action plan developed, and each functional area put in their part into the plan with the focus of every decision we make is going to be looking at how we're going to reduce fatal and severe injury crashes, because that's what matters. I remember 2 years ago, I went to AASHTO, which is American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, their subcommittee meeting, and state of Minnesota, I think, they just adopted their Vision Zero target. And they had a PSA. And the PSA was about them going out and interviewing different individuals. And the first question that they asked to all these individuals is, how many fatalities are okay for you, right? So people would throw out 20, 30, 10, 5, whatever number comes to their mind. And then they went to the same folks and asked the question, how many fatalities in your family is okay with for you? The answer is 0. So what I'm asking is, our folks as engineers make those decisions so that we can create those safe environment for our customers. But not only that, we need to do our part, because we all drive on the facilities, and do our part to avoid those fatal and severe injury crashes, because we own that responsibility. I believe in community success. The third priority I put forth is, we as transportation, as it relates to infrastructure, we are a critical part of community growth, community success. What we do makes or breaks communities. So we need to make decisions collaborating with our local partners to make those communities successful. Our decisions that we make associated with the transportation projects as it relates to infrastructure should align with community goals. I use a simple example to relate to my folks. If you think about it, I tell them, think about your house. Right? If you're living in a community with your house, if you don't maintain your house, what happens to the community? If your neighbor doesn't maintain the house, what happens to the community? The price goes down. Nobody wants to move into that community, right? Same way, if we don't do our part on our facilities, on our roads, don't maintain them, don't cut grass, leave with potholes, would people want to move into those communities? No. What we do day in and day out helps communities succeed. We need to make decisions through our planning, design, operations, and maintenance to harmonize with community goals and community vision. That's what we need to do. And the same thing goes to the communities, so that they don't plan things that are not consistent with the goals of the transportation system. So we got to collaboratively work together. That's the key. Because of my passion for safety, I was identified as a state bicycle pedestrian safety champion, so I lead that effort statewide. I thought, before I go into the presentation, we got to celebrate something, right? University Parkway DDI, you remember? University Parkway DDI, right? And I was thinking about it. The demand was for us to look for a capacity improvement before the World Rowing Championship comes in, and we've delivered on that, okay? We took an innovative concept, built a nation's largest DDI, okay? And we are very proud of that accomplishment. But at the same time, I thought this community need to be proud of that accomplishment, because if Manatee and Sarasota counties were not okay with us to implement an innovative concept, which is pretty much, if you think about it, initially there was articles and cartoons prepared with spaghettis, right? Not understanding what a DDI is, but the openness to that concept is very important for successful implementation of those kind of projects in the communities. And because of that openness, we could actually make it happen, and we had a successful project completed. So kudos to Manatee and Sarasota counties, because this project is a success, and it's your success, okay? I have a lot of good news about this project, because this project received the Outstanding Major Project Award from the American Council of Engineering Companies at the state level and the national level. Outstanding project from Florida Transportation Builders Association. And then we received an award for innovation from the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, and it was placed second in the nationwide, we call the popularity contest, but it's a nationwide contest. And then it was identified as one of the top 10 projects in the nation by Roads and Bridges magazine. Great accomplishment, and it was a great accomplishment because of the partnership that we had with the communities here. I'm not going to dwell on the mission and vision of the department, but if you look at the vision, it's mainly about fatality-free and congestion-free system. It's a lofty goal, okay? But if we don't have a lofty goal, then we would not work towards that, right? So we have a lofty goal, and we work increment by increment to achieve that particular goal. Recently, we did adopt as a state to, zero fatalities as our goal for our performance measures to Federal Highway Administration, and we are very serious about that, and we will work towards achieving that goal. And if you look at our mission, it talks about economic prosperity and success and quality of our communities, and that's what I was talking about before. So our mission is not just about transportation system, it's not just about safe transportation system, it's about economic prosperity and the success of communities, because we play a huge role in that. So this is a slide that goes through how we go about defining our work program. So we work with our local communities, get their input, and develop the Florida Transportation Plan. We update this every 5 years, okay? This is the foundation for our transportation future in the state. Based on that Florida Transportation Plan, your metropolitan planning organizations and the transportation planning organizations, they work on developing a long-range transportation plan which defines what the infrastructure should be, multimodal infrastructure should be for their community, through coordination with your local partners, like in this case, Sarasota Manatee MPO, working with Manatee County, Sarasota County, and all the cities, and develop a long-range transportation plan. And we provide them with what the revenue projections are going to be to the future, and they use that and they develop the cost feasible plan. That means what can you afford based on the revenue projections. And using that, what we do is we work on identifying taking the priorities that were identified by the MPO, we develop the different phases of projects, which starts from the planning, goes through project development, and then design, construction, and operations. So we identify different phases for the projects, okay? And then we get into the 5-year program, which is the first 5 years of our program, which will identify line items of all the projects that we're going to pursue in those 5 years. However, every year, the work that we focus on is the next upcoming year, which is approved by which is the budget that's approved by the legislature and the governor. So we use that, and that's our work that we work on in the next year. So what does our work program include? First of all, safety is our #1 priority. That's why I talk about safety so much, right? And it's incorporated in all our programs. It's inherent part of our business. Every decision that we make is related to how we can build a safe transportation system. And then, by statute, our next priority is preserving our investments, maintaining our investments, the bridges, the roadways. We have a resurfacing program with a target of at least 85% of our facilities meet certain criteria. And we have a maintenance rating program which defines what it would take to maintain our system, maintain all the elements on our roadways. And then, once we define that, I look at what are the other statutory requirements that we need to allocate funding to. We allocate funding to those programs, which include the Small County Road Assistance Program, County Assistance Programs, and public transportation, okay? And beyond that, whatever money is left from our revenue projection, by statute, we take 75% of that money and allocate towards strategic intermodal system, and the remaining 25% goes towards capacity improvements on our roadway, on our arterial roadways. That's basically how our program is set up. I like this slide because it feels like eternity for us to deliver a project, you know? And there is a reason for that, because you go through your planning process, you identify your priorities, and you identify, okay, this is what we need to do for our system, and then the projects are developed. Once the projects are developed, if you have a capacity project, then we are required to go through a project development study. And the project development study is what defines which side are we going to widen a roadway? Are we going to widen it to one side or both sides? You know, depending on the right-of-way impacts, environmental impacts, socioeconomic impacts, all those stuff come into the picture. And we have very, very detailed public involvement and community involvement as part of that process. So that's why the PD&E process takes about 2 years, okay? And once we are done with the PD&E, then we get into design. If it is a major corridor project, it typically takes about 4 years. Of that 4 years, 2 years is for right-of-way acquisition. Depending on the number of parcels we need to acquire and the ease of how we can get those parcels, because some of them may go to court, we take that into account, and that's why the right-of-way phase is about 2 years. So once the design is done, then we go into construction. And depending on the length of the road, the segment, you know, the construction time could go 3 years. So typical project is about 7 to 10 years. That's what you see here, capacity projects. Smaller projects like intersection projects, those may get done in 2 to 3 years, but the big, huge capacity projects take that much time, and that's the reason for that. Okay, so we develop our work program, you know, through coordination with the local communities, working with the MPOs. But then, once we get the approval for the budget, then we gotta be accountable for what we promise to deliver, right? So the Florida Transportation Commission is created for that. The governor appoints different representatives onto the Florida Transportation Commission, and we are accountable to the commission. So what we do is we go at the start of the year. We say, hey, this is our program, this is what's approved by the governor and the legislature, and this is what we're going to deliver. And then, at the end of the year, we go and tell, did we meet our commitments? Did we deliver what we are supposed to? So we give a report to them. They do a detailed, in-depth review, and they produce a report telling how the department actually delivered to the promises that we made for that particular year. Not only that, because what we do is every month, the executive leaderships, which includes the secretary, assistant secretaries, and the district secretaries, okay, We all get together every month and we look at those performance measures and we see how we are doing towards meeting those performance measures. Are there any adjustments to our business that we need to make so that we deliver what we are supposed to deliver? So we have monthly meetings. On top of it, we have several financial audits. We go through internal, external audits by program area, by project, individual project, and even by fund. It's amazing how many fund codes we have. You talk about financial stuff, it's mind-boggling how many fund codes that we got, and then the restrictions that are associated with each of those fund codes. And so we go through audits to make sure that we're actually following the rules and regulations that we are supposed to follow. That's basically our accountability. Okay, so for the fiscal year 18-19 work program, we got, second year in a row, we got about $10.8 billion. Now this is statewide, right? I forgot to mention, Phil asked me to talk about District 1, what District 1 includes, right? So because we have 67 counties in the state, we chose to take the decentralized model. Decentralized model is where you got our central office in Tallahassee, who provides policy direction, program direction, and then the districts, which we have 7 districts, the 67 counties are divided into 7 districts, and then the 8th district is the Turnpike Enterprise, okay? So we divided them into 7 districts, all the counties, and each district is led by a district secretary, and then we have staff who execute the program, basically. So central office is policy direction, and then districts execute the work program. That's basically the model. So in District 1, we have 12 counties. So we start from Polk County, where our district headquarters is located, and then we skip Hillsborough, that's part of District 7. We didn't want Hillsborough. And we go Manatee, Sarasota, all the way down to Collier County, and then all of Heartland. Basically going Highlands, DeSoto, Hardy, Henry, Okeechobee, all those counties. So it's total of 12 counties, so it's a huge geographic area, but we are excited about our district. And I spent most of my time on the road, at least three days in the week, because of my commitment to connect with our local communities. I spend a lot of time traveling to our local communities and meeting with them. That was my commitment, okay? So that's District 1. So the $10.8 billion is actually for the entire state, of which $10.1 billion is work program. And you gotta remember, this includes Turnpike projects also. They have some major projects going on. And then $782 million is operating budget. That means that's the budget that pays our expenses, our contracts that we need to do, our building maintenance, our salary budget, all that stuff. That's basically our budget. You can see our operating budget is very, very minimal compared to the work program that we need to deliver. Okay, so this is a slide that talks about, it's a pie chart, which talks about the total work program for the 5 years. It's about $52 billion, okay, of which the money that comes from federal budget is only 25% of our budget. It's the great thing for state of Florida because we don't rely on federal budget that much, federal aid that much. It's only 25% of our program, which gives a lot of flexibility on how we can manage our program. Because every dollar that we add to a project, federal dollar that we add to a project, there's a lot of other restrictions that come with it. So what we do is we try to make sure that projects are wholly funded with state funds and wholly funded with federal funds so that we have that flexibility. But the good thing is we have good revenue from the state and less dependent on the federal aid. Okay. This is another slide which talks about what amount is for construction and what amount is for maintenance, public transportation and stuff, and the product support, which includes the engineering side of it. I'm not going to go into those numbers. All right, so the next few slides, I'm going to be talking about some of the major projects that are in Manatee County, that we are pursuing in Manatee County. I may miss some of them. If you feel like I missed one or two, you can bring that up in the question and answers, and I can go into those, okay? So we were, last year, we were celebrating the almost completion of the final segment of Interstate 75 to 6 lanes in Charlotte County. And right when we were celebrating, I was in a presentation, my strategic intermodal system folks were making a presentation going, hey, by the way, Interstate 75 in Manatee and Sarasota is almost at failing conditions. And then along I-4, it's going to fail in 5 to 10 years. And then in Lee and Collier, in I-75 is going to fail in the next 10 years. So we were like, wait a minute, we just finished 6 laning. There's never end to this demand, right? So what we did was, luckily, we had a project development study that was done for Interstate 75 and I-4, which included express lanes. So we had an ultimate typical section that was done, a PD&E study that was done a while ago. So what we did was we took about $30 million that was available last year, and we programmed project development studies for I-75 in Sarasota, Manatee, I-75 in Lee Collier, and divided the segment in Charlotte based on one of those major interchanges and kind of tacked on to those 2 projects. And then we programmed a PD&E project for I-4. And the goal for I-4 is to harmonize with what our sister districts, District 5 and District 7, are doing for their express lanes projects. And the intent is for us to identify what the ultimate typical section should be, okay? And if there are going to be managed lanes or express lanes, what the treatment should be. And so we'll be going through a master planning study and then a PD&E study, which is going to identify the geometrics for those facilities. So what we did was, because it's such a huge program, it involves all of Interstate in our district, we created an Interstate Program office, which includes the project development, design, and construction areas. And we hired an Interstate Program Manager consultant who's going to oversee these 3 PD&Es, just so that we have consistency in how we approach the Interstate Program, but also we have consistency in relation to the outreach. We don't want to have one consultant going and talking about one project in one way and then another going and talking another way. So we wanted that consistency, so we hired this Interstate Program consultant to handle that. And the end product, what we are hoping is we will identify, I think we know the answer, but we want these PD&E studies to identify the priority of implementation. That means which segments and what the limits of those segments we should pursue adding those managed lanes along Interstate 75. Okay. We knew the challenges that we are going to have and the need for us to address all of the interchanges along our interstate system. So we've been progressively working on improving interchanges along I-75, and our first priority was in Manatee, Sarasota counties. So what we did was we pursued the University Parkway DDI, and after that, we programmed a project, and that's under construction for I-75 at 64 interchange. Then we just started the construction for I-75 and State Road 70 interchange. And we are very proud of, we never thought we were going to get the funding for this, but because of the amount of money that's involved, but we got the funding for I-75 and 301 interchange. That project is near and dear to me because it is really about safety. It's really about safety because you all know that during peak times, traffic backs up onto the interstate every day, pretty much. So we've tried some operational improvements that did not help, and the only way we can address that is through capacity improvement. So what we did was we had a design, we were aggressively pursuing the design, and luckily, we asked for funding, and there was some money left over from projects that came in with low bids, and so they funded this project for us. Our central office funded this project for us. So what we're going to do is, because of the complexity of the project, because it involves 2 new bridges parallel to I-75 for both the ramps, okay, coming off northbound and going on to southbound. We're going to be pursuing a diamond interchange, not the diverging diamond interchange. That's what is currently designed. But we decided to go forth with a design-build contract approach because that particular contract approach with this size of a project could get a lot of innovative ideas. So we're going to challenge our contracting industry and our engineering industry to come up with innovative concepts. So we don't know if we're going to build that diamond interchange or is it going to be a different concept that the contractors are going to bring in front of us as we go through the evaluation process. And the goal is to get the best solution with the least amount of money. That's basically our goal. So that's why we're going with the design-build contract. Now, as we are improving these interchanges, one of the things that we have been doing is we have included what we call an auxiliary lane. Auxiliary lane, which is runs from interchange to interchange, so that we improve operation safety, but also add some capacity, okay, as we are rebuilding these interchanges. And then after the interchange construction is done, we have landscaping projects, so that we have gateway landscaping treatments at all these interchanges. Okay, so the other projects are Barrier Island Traffic Study, which is basically, we started that study based on the request from the MPO, and to look for solutions to manage traffic congestion for traffic getting on and off Barrier Island. We finished the phase 2 portion of the study, and we are going through the phase 3, and we anticipate this study to be complete late 2019, and we're going to pursue improvements that are identified as part of that study. Not that we have not been pursuing improvements, we have been pursuing certain improvements that we saw were pretty clear-cut over the past couple of years. One is realignment of 119th Street at Cortez. You know, we are pursuing that, and then we added a left turn lane by restriping lanes at 41 and Gulfstream intersection. So we are looking at those kind of improvements, but we're waiting for this study to be done so that we can pursue the improvements. The other study is, which is a very huge study, Central Manatee Network Alternative Analysis. And the goal of this study is to identify short-term, mid-term, and long-term improvements to address traffic congestion issues as between Palmetto and Bradenton and within downtown Bradenton. So what we did was we did identify short-term improvements, mid-term improvements, and we also identified that there is a need for additional capacity across the river, okay? So based on that, we are pursuing to program what we call a Bradenton-Palmetto Connector Project Development Study. And then from a multimodal aspect, Palmetto Trails Network Plan. So it's a Trails PD&E study, project development study, and then minor geometric improvements within the downtown area in downtown Bradenton. We presented all those concepts to all our local partners, got their support, both at the local government level and at the MPO level. So as we are going through the work program development process, we're actively looking at programming those projects. The next one is 15th Street from Tallahassee to US 41. This is a complete streets project, which is a high priority for Manatee County. It's a number 2 priority for Sarasota Manatee MPO. We have funded the design and we've funded the right-of-way from fiscal year 21 to 24. We are in conversations with the MPO and Manatee County to figure out a game plan for funding construction because it's $50 million project. So that's not the amount of revenue that comes to the MPO is not that much amount per month, per year. So we got to come up with some creative means to get this construction funded. So we'll be in conversations about that. Finally, for the US 41 multimodal corridor, emphasis corridor, we are adding sidewalks along US 41 from 69th Avenue to Cortez Road. Okay, you may have heard about State Road 64 and all the challenges that we are having along State Road 64 with the crashes that are happening out there. The challenge there is, you know, the roadway, the way it was built to the development that aggressively has been developing out there, they're not harmonized, okay? So we got transitioning high-speed facility coming into a residential area or a mixed development area. So what we are talking about is how can we change the intersection control so that we can control speeds, but also create a safe environment for folks who are actually turning on and off 64. So we are pursuing roundabouts at 64 and Drive, which is under construction, and we will be installing roundabouts at Lorraine Road and 64 and 64 and Pope Road. And the reason we picked roundabouts is roundabouts are known to control speeds, also reduce fatal crashes by 90%, and severe injury crashes by 75%. What better treatment than roundabouts at those locations to get the character that we need to get on the roadway? We also have State Road 70. We got a PD&E study that's ongoing for widening of State Road 70 between Lorraine Road to County Road 675. We have design underway. We just hired the consultant. They're starting the design. And we did program construction in fiscal year 22-23. Obviously, we have been pursuing bridge projects on our Intracoastal and the DeSoto Bridge project. We finished the PD&E for Anna Maria Bridge. Design is almost done, almost complete. We are actively looking for construction funding. Cortez Bridge, we came to a recommendation that a fixed span bridge is the appropriate solution. We're waiting for approval from our central office, environmental management office for that. We have a designer on board, and we will be aggressively looking for construction funding for that. DeSoto Bridge, PD&E, our project development study is also programmed 3 years down the road so that we can look at what replacement option is for DeSoto Bridge. All right, so I want to talk about our SIS program a little bit and the cost feasible plan for the SIS program. We got, if you take SIS strategic intermodal systems facilities in Manatee County, you got Interstate 75, 275, State Road 70, University Parkway, it's an emerging SIS because of the connector to the airport, and then Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, and then Port Manatee. SIS program has got very similar planning process that I mentioned. Our central office go through a unfunded needs plan, and then they define their cost feasible plan, and then that rolls into a second 5-year plan, and then that rolls into our 5-year work program. If you look at the unfunded needs, this is beyond what the cost feasible plan says. We have about needs for about $107 billion that is not funded. So priorities and how we identify priorities is going to be very critical. Cost feasible plan, again, we identify, take the top priorities from the unfunded need plan and then include it in the cost feasible plan, which rolls into the second 5 years and the first 5 year. And we give the cost feasible plan to our MPO so they can incorporate into their long-range transportation plan for consistency. District 1 is slated to receive about $5.06 billion for the period starting from 2030 to 2045. That's a huge chunk, and that's because of the interstate program that we are pursuing. Okay, some of the highlights, like I mentioned, the I-4 managed lanes, I-75 managed lanes, the State Road 70 capacity improvements, taking it from County Road 675 towards Okeechobee, and then US 19 capacity improvements. The thing is, we're focusing on our current needs, and we're focusing on our future as it relates to our current transportation planning process. But there's this disruptive technology that's out there that's coming at us, and we have to be prepared to, how to deal with it and how do we plan our infrastructure towards this, to accommodate this disruptive technology. And so the way we are doing it is FDOT is actively planning, preparing policies, and implementing testing grounds for the connected vehicles and autonomous vehicle technologies. And in fact, because of our progressive way of pursuing how we prepare for this technology, we received an award from the Intelligent Transportation System America. It's an international organization. We received an award for our initiatives and our openness to test those technologies. Okay, so there's multiple technologies that are out there. If you talk about electric vehicles, the challenge that we got with electric vehicles is, how is that going to impact our revenue forecast? because we depend on gas tax, and the more electric vehicles, the less gas tax we get, and what is the future model for revenue going to be? That's the challenge. The second is shared. You got Ubers, Lyfts, and there was a recent article that came out which identified that the people who are riding their bicycles or walking to restaurants, they stopped doing that. There's about 15% reduction of that because now people are calling Uber and Lyft to get to where they're needing to go. And how the trips that is made by the shared use vehicles, shared ride-share vehicles have on our infrastructure is something that we got to figure out, because there's more vehicles on our road, more trips on our road that we didn't have before. So that's something that we need to figure out. Connected vehicles is a technology which I think is going to revolutionize how we improve safety on our facilities, and I'll go into that a little bit. And then autonomous vehicles or automated vehicles is where the whole land there's so much change that's going to happen in our transportation modeling, how we plan our infrastructure, depending on what model the industry is going to go as they manufacture these autonomous vehicles. So these are all the challenges that we have in our front. So why connected vehicles? Florida is identified as the focus state for intersection crashes, focus state for runoff road crashes, focus state for bike ped crashes. All these crashes result in fatalities, and we need to figure out a technology that's going to help with that, because NHTSA, they came out with the determination that 90% of the crashes are actually caused by driver error. It's not the highways that cause the crashes, it's us who use the highways and the decisions that we make that cause these crashes. So connected vehicles is a technology that actually provides those notifications to motorists. Whether you are going along a roadway and if you're approaching a tight curve, you would get a notification saying that, hey, slow down, you're approaching a tight curve, which addresses the lane departure crash. If you're approaching an intersection and if you are going to run a red light, you would get a notification. Or somebody's getting ready to run a red light, you would get a notification so you can react accordingly. That's another way. We get notifications related to somebody braking suddenly so that you can be prepared for that. These are the kinds of notifications that you can get so that you can make those safe choices. There's different ways of communicating, but I'm going to focus on the vehicle-to-infrastructure side of it, because there's a vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle-to-infrastructure communication, vehicle-to-pedestrian communication. So all these communications that the industry is pursuing, but we're going to talk about vehicle-to-infrastructure because that's what we focus on. Okay, so for connected vehicles, what we need to focus on is to provide that roadside unit that is going to communicate to the vehicle with the unit that's what we call the OBU, which is the onboard unit. So this onboard unit is going to be talking to the roadside unit, which is going to provide information to the onboard unit to tell the driver the information that they need. And there's a couple of communications that are being talked about, short-range communications. And then now that 5G is here, all the roadside units that the industry is installing, that could be leveraged for these communications. We've got several deployments that we are pursuing around the state, in Tallahassee, in Gainesville, in Orlando area, and on Turnpike. We have we're planning for a truck platooning study. I'll show you a 1-minute video about that. And then the other thing is in District 1, we are pursuing a couple of projects in partnership with District 5 and District 7 on I-4, okay, and in partnership with Lee County in US 41 in Lee County. It's a neat video about the benefits of platooning of trucks, because from a safety, efficiency, the trucking industry is very, very excited about this. So we're planning on doing this test on our turnpike, Florida's turnpike, so they're still in planning stages for that. Autonomous vehicles, there's different levels of automation. I'm not going to talk about all the different levels of automation. The day we are looking for is where you don't need to drive. You just sit around. I would like that, because of the amount of driving that I do. Obviously, Florida is one of the leading states in testing grounds for this disruptive technology. There's 10 testing grounds around the nation, and Central Florida Autonomous Vehicle Partnership is a testing ground that involves District 1, District 5, Florida Polytechnic, the Turnpike, Space Coast, the NASA, Port Canaveral, University of Central Florida, and 3 levels. What we are looking for is 3 levels. One is a simulation, which involves the universities doing the simulation. Controlled atmosphere is where we are building a test track called SunTrax. I'm going to go over that in a minute. And at Port Canaveral, Orlando International Airport, and Orlando International Airport, and at NASA, that's the control environment. And then the open environment is what we do and what kind of testing is done on our facilities, I-4 and other roadways. SunTrax is originally conceived, this is built by Florida Polytechnic, right in that immediate vicinity, by I-4 and Polk Parkway in that area. And originally we wanted to do a toll testing facility, but because of this emerging technology that's coming forward, what we're going to do is we're going to build this facility to create different environments, different geometry environments, urban environment, suburban environment, so that manufacturers can bring their technology and test it at this location so that we learn from them and they'll learn from us, so that we have a better product that we can offer to our customers. This is supposed to be done in 2021. The first phase is to be done in 2019, and then the infield, which is the autonomous vehicle testing grounds, is going to be done in 2021. Finally, I mentioned how autonomous vehicles is going to impact the way we make decisions. If you think about it, we go to work, we drive, we park our vehicle, right? And then at the end of the day, we drive back to our home. But depending on what the manufacturers are thinking about, if they go with a timeshare type model where you buy a slice of time of the vehicle, then the vehicle is going to take you in the time slot, drop you off, and then get back on the road, pick somebody else up, go take care of their business, and then get back on the road, take care of what they need. One thing is, we don't need as big parking lots anymore. So that means more dense land use, more traffic, right? The type of design of how buildings are built is going to change. Now you're going to have more drop-off areas, okay? And then the decision process that we go through defining the traffic impacts, the transportation, the trip loading on our network is going to be completely different. How we decide on what type of improvements are needed to be made, what the design is going to look like, and how we maintain our facilities. How often do we resurface? How often do we do? Everything is going to change. So what we are doing is we've provided a guidance to the MPOs so that they can figure out how to incorporate this technology into the LRTP process. But also, we are working on policy statements and looking at scenario-based testing for transportation modeling. Plus, you've seen all the test beds that we've been going through to test this technology. So anyway, that's basically it for my presentation. I went over about 7 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you. We do have time for a couple of questions, so yes.
Is there any discussion of expanding State Road 70 to an interstate? There seems to be a lot of truck traffic on 2 lanes all the way over to the East Coast.
So our central office has been pursuing a high-level study for State Road 70 all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. And the goal of that study is to identify what existing conditions are, what short-term and long-term needs are, which will roll into our plans that we've been pursuing with our PD&E studies.
Anyone else? No other questions?
I got a quick one.
Yeah, sure.
I saw your mission plan, zero congestion or something. I mean, how's that possible in Florida?
I'm not going to say it's not possible. However, what we are focusing on is a term called reliability. So reliability is where you leave, you plan a trip from your home and you say, this is the amount of time I'm going to allocate to get to where I need to get to. And the more we work towards improving that reliability, then the more successful we are. So that's basically what we are focusing on.
Commissioner?
And I don't have a question as much as a comment. I'll just say that I really appreciate LK's leadership. We've been able to make great progress in this area in trying to solve some of the congestion, and it only does happen through relationships. So I just want to say thank you. And we're going to continue to work hard to try to solve our community's problems, but we can only do it by working together. So I just want to say thank you.
Anyone else?
Either I'm too comprehensive or bored you guys to death.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's obvious LK put a lot of effort and energy into that report. I don't know about you, but my head's spinning a little bit with all that's going on. Your days are full, obviously. A very special thank you to LK and for all that you did there. That's great. I'd like to again thank Center State Bank, the Mosaic Company, and Sons Insurance Company for their continued support and sponsorship, and for the Marriott Bradenton Riverfront for our delicious lunch and the accommodations today. Thank you. Well, we'll hope you'll join us next month at our headliner luncheon for Velma Knowles. She is a dynamic leadership trainer and coach. I know a number of you have already heard her speak at some of our other chamber functions, and she will be speaking on the value and becoming the valuable leader. So we look forward to seeing you next month, and thank you for attending.